Recording in progress.
Morning, traders. Welcome to the pre-market analysis that we open up to the public every single Wednesday. Thanks for joining us this morning. Going to give us a little bit of a breakdown on what's going to happen today. This is Spartan speaking, by the way. Once I'm done talking, Beth's going to come on, give you a breakdown of what's been going on in regards to news events over the course of the evening, as well as what's going to be going on today, going through any bigger picture items, commodities, ETFs, big caps that make sense to be looking at. Once that's done, I'm going to come on. We're going to be going through the names that are gapping up, gapping down that I'm looking at today. We'll talk about the news associated with those gap up, gap downs, as well as go through the SPY and the FANG. After that's done, South Beach will come on, give you a breakdown of what he's looking at from an analyst point of view, individual name point of view, as well as macro side. And then we'll do a quick little recap of those individual names that I went through, as well as the SPY and the FANG, and we'll be ready for the open. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead, pass over to Beth, and I'll talk to you guys in a little bit. Beth, if you're ready, it's all yours.
Thank you so much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, my friends. Welcome. Welcome here at Spartan Trading Wednesday, where we open it up to the world. Let's have some fun. Let's see what's going on. We're going to focus. Yesterday, I focused on Apple. Today, we're going to focus on the Qs. Okay. Let's see in terms of data. It's really interesting when you go over the retail sales that we had. If you look at year over year, obviously, and then you look at taking out ex-autos, you know, we're getting a lot of Fed head talking, right? Powell was spoke yesterday before a webinar with students, and was honest and says, well, he really doesn't know what the hell's going to happen here with COVID and the economy. And that's an honest statement. Today, we do get out this afternoon the FOMC minutes. And I was talking to Twins about this. And there should be no shock about tapering. And it's a question of when. I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. But the real issue is, what has the market priced in? What is the market priced in on the interest rate side, as well as on the indices? And there's a huge disconnect. We'll go over it as well in terms of, you know, the breadth of the market, which is, for years in the past, low breadth, weak breadth would be a huge red flag. When that actually happens, if you look at Keynes, when we're going to see any sort of meaningful pullback in the market, who knows? This is why you don't pick tops, right? Overnight, New Zealand, 3-day lockdown, total lockdown country, right? We'll have to keep an eye on what's going on there. We got the Fed doing some stuff as well, and then we have the housing starts, yada, yada, yada. Overseas, construction output, core inflation was as expected. They're very good at this, just so you know. There was a bond auction as well. And then you can see here out of the UK, right? Let's see what's going on. I don't understand why this is wrong, okay? And this is it was mentioned earlier. Is it not possible that what's going on with China basically aligns them closer to the rest of the world? So if you think about it, with a lot of these internet stocks, there's a lot of, I don't want to say nefarious, but there's things that go on that should be addressed by the regulators, okay? So national privacy law, this is what the Chinese people want. They're frustrated, okay? Fraud, data theft, data collection. So why is this wrong? I'm just saying, okay? There are some positive things that the Chinese regulators want to do for their economy as well as for investors. So that's just my thought. All right, 10 minutes. What? No, there's nothing weird. I can't imagine any surprise. Maybe potentially more aggressive sooner rather than later, but it's a nothing. I mean, what can they say? The markets are the Fed heads have already told us what's going to happen. Kashkari, every single one of them says the same thing, right? All the data coming out says, well, golly gee, even if they start to taper, guys, it's just so much liquidity is going to still be coming into the market. And this is why, when it's all said and done, stocks are the best place to be. right? All right. Let's take a look. Here's Qashqai, reasonable to taper late this year, early next, yada, yada, yada. Okay. A shit show. Just pass the, I don't understand. They're making a huge mistake trying to link it with the 3.5 trillion out of the Senate wants to reconciliation. I think that's a big mistake. A lot of the moderate Democrats in the House won't go for it. Just pass the friggin' 1 trillion as it stands and quit it. Stop it. I mean, it's just govern. Okay, so this I think is the big offset for the headwinds the market see. We know that corporations have crazy amount of cash on the sidelines, right? We know that, I mean, what was it? Target today was saying that they're going to buy back. You know, what was it? $15 billion worth of stock. Okay, so investors, right? Let's see if there's going to be mergers and acquisitions. I guess that's going to be the next thing, right? This is a big deal. I keep saying this is a big deal. Supply chain bottlenecks is a big deal. And it's coming at a really bad time, especially when we're going into the holiday season soon. I know it's kind of months away, but these delays are going to increase prices as well as there will be empty shelves. I keep saying it. If you want, you better start buying your presents now, because I'm telling you right now, there's going to be a lot of scarcity. There, supply chain, errands, take a peek. Okay, so now what are they're saying? It directly impacts like Albemarle, Parker Hannifin, APTV. I was surprised by this, WDC, and ANET. So those are the ones they're saying that will be directly impacted as a result of the supply chain bottleneck. Cool, bring it on. So banks and brokers shift to one-day equity settlement. Oh my God, LFG. Let's take a look at China debt. I mean, this has been around for decades, right? There's an issue there, but you can see that. So it looks like they're trying mightily to tamp it down and take control of it. You know, this is the assumed data, right? I mean, this, and they call it, it's the hidden government debt, right? So it's hidden. So this is what we're assuming. I mean, this is a huge overhang, more so than what's going on the other side with the regulations and stuff in terms of the health of the economy. But, you know, when you look at it here in the United States, right, who are we to judge? When you look at our government debt, right, on the local level, state level, and federal level, who are we to question, right? All right, so we know that the CDC data is encouraging, and Biden et al. Are going to come out and recommend boosters. They're going to support it. I don't, this is something that we've talked about, and it's finally about Dr. Godley getting off, oh, I shouldn't say that, everybody loves Dr. Godley, but he was really, and I was very aggressive, really wrong in saying that, oh, well, like the UK, this is going to peak like last week. Okay, that's not constructive, right? But on the other side, they're using more of the Regeneron, which is really important too, okay? So you can see here that Florida, Texas, it's underused, and this is something obviously should give Regeneron a push. And I agree 100% that if you are asymptomatic, irregardless, you should be reaching out. But if you're asymptomatic, you really don't know if you got it, right? Because there's no contact tracing going on. But anyways, this is what they're using. This is their go-to, and it's about freaking time. It makes sense to me, right? Another article I read out of the Wall Street Journal, I thought this was pretty interesting in terms of carbon offsets. That basically Michigan, because of all the trees they have, it's a beautiful state. Companies are reaching out to them and using their carbon neutral, well, plus to offset their carbon negative stuff. That's good. All right, let's take a peek here. All right, ratings, you know the drill, right. We got to see who's been naughty, who's been nice, yada, yada, yada. We got CNM from Citi, 80%, yes. MQ, GXO, MK, TW out of the top charts, all initiations today. Okay. See, so let's see what happened yesterday. So, so we've been talking about a cycle, right? And the window is started on Friday and it can go to next week, the window. And Carolyn Borden also has the same thing going on. But the close of yesterday on the SPY was not great enough to declare. This is one of my peeps. This is the planetary guy. Right? The volume was there, but it had to be 0.75 to 1% on a decline, and it didn't quite make it. So anyways, we'll see what happens here. Moderna, a favorite meme stock now, right? Kroger's, Text, a lot of the healthcare, XLV, top dog yesterday. Right? We'll see if it continues. Every day is a new day. You really don't know in terms of the following bunch of ball, but I do think, and I've been pretty articulate about this, that I do think that we have the small caps, low floats, yada, yada, yada. Spartan's going to be really busy with those. And we're already starting to see that. He's posting more equity type trades because that's where he's seeing the momentum breakouts, right? And we'll see how it continues. And this is why we're going to do a deep dive in the Qs as well, right? All right, let's do it. Yesterday, SPY 20. This is a lot, guys. I don't know if you noticed it. Some of these were really chunky going out. I mean, somebody has a feeling about this, right? See how it plays out. Tesla got some, and this was interesting towards the end of the day. So this was a kind of a tell that Tesla was going to bounce, right? Apple, just fantastic. Still can do. The multiple prints is what I like to see. The number of orders, this is continuation. Love it. Pfizer got some love as well. You know what? LOVE that as well. LFG. We go from there. All right. McClellan summation, NASDAQ. I cannot screen this enough, but it's quantitative easing. What does it mean? Short term, sloppy, choppy, right? But 2 weeks out, guys, 100, well, golly gee, it's only 2 other times it's happened, 1999, 2014. So of those two, I mean, anyways. But as you can see, 3, 6, 1 year. So this is a nice tailwind. We like that, right? Here's another thing, NASDAQ composite with 1% of the, but the McClellan oscillator is less than 1. Anyways, new highs and lows less than 45%. Short-term, sloppy, choppy. We've got more data, right? 1996 this time, but not as bullish as I'd like it to be. There's high, low. Yeah, well, you get the gist. Now, this is kind of interesting. This is that Hindenburg. So we got a cluster going on with the Hindenburg, right? And what happens when this cluster's like this? But this has been going on for a while. And this is that huge red flag I tell you that's out there. Anyways, if you go back, you're only looking back to 2020, right? When this happens, normally the market sells off, right? You got whoop, whoop, right? Most since July of 2015. This goes back to 1986. So this is kind of a big deal, right? But you see right here with the financial crisis of 2008, we're not quite at that heavy water. But going back to 1986, what does this mean? Not a whole hell of a lot. Anyways, breath stinks. 5,200 Qs stinks. SPY breath actually is starting to come down because of yesterday, right? SPY breath, this is insane. This is the 200-day average, guys. This is why I'm telling you that these red flags are just flashing, right? IWM doing its IWM, thing. This is crazy. This is going to bounce. Okay, this is the 200-day. What percentage? I mean, my goodness gracious. So that's the opportunity. I don't know when, how, but once it starts bouncing, it's going to be multiple months. Just keep that in the back of your mind. And here's, we continue to look at the breadth overall, financials, materials, right? XLU. So anything 90 plus is a huge warning that its time will roll over, but you just don't know when. And this is the problem. You just don't know when. You can see overseas the same thing. Green, 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 green. We love green. Single digits. SMH, guys, is down here. Okay. XOT. I'd love it single digits because if it was, I'd shout it as a long XLY. So we've got some opportunities here on a bounce. And you can see here, XLV, 2-year, 91. Good luck with that one, right? Nothing going on in terms of volume, guys. You know, if you look at it in terms of changes. Oh, well, I take that back. That was a pretty, but you know, the day before was it plus 5,100. So it's like whatever. Anyways, diamond, VXN. Okay, so we bounced once again. Now we're into this. You know the drill. Got there popped and it drops. It's so hard to sustain volatility right now, guys. It really is hard to sustain. All right, let's take a look at yields. Yields up across the board. It is actually steepening, which is what we want to see in the shorter curve, 2 to 10, right? 5 to 10. But if you look at the 30, it's flattening. Maybe Canada up, Europe all down, Japan, Pacific Rim all down. Let's take a look at the 10-year. So, like I say, the question is the anticipation from August that we went all the way from this low, this is, you know, 0.5%, all the way up to the high. This is 1.8%, right? And then back down here to around the mid. Does this actually price in tapering? That is the question. I don't know. I think so, but that's just my thought. Okay, here we go, the 5-year. As you can see, monthly, reclaiming this pivot right here. I mean, this is a huge range. I just don't see us getting outside this range for months to come. I just don't. Let's see. And here you can see here, this is the 10-20, right? Yield curve is, well, it needs to break this downtrend, right? But if we want it to steepen, it has to start going down there. It's all about the yield curve right now, guys. Here's the 210. As you can see, starting to steepen a little bit. That's all we want to see. Okay. Let's take a look at German rates. Unable to reclaim this pivot, soft, right? Now, China, once again, okay? We're looking for signs of quantitative easing is what we're looking for, right? So it got rebuffed here. This is a monthly. Let's see what happens out here. You're a little bit below the mid, and you're at last month's low. We'll see if they do that. And what we're going to see is more on the currency side, right? That's what we're looking for. So if you look at the dollar, right? Double top, double bottom. I don't see it breaking out of this range right now. If it does, that's a big deal. And that actually is a headwind for the market, not a tailwind. Chinese yuan, right? They haven't started to weaken it. We're just hovering right here. So we'll see how that plays out. Now, yesterday, and we'll go a little bit faster in terms of the what's going on overseas. DAX, as you can see, still holding the breakout on the monthly. Here's the K-Web. Basically, it's bouncing, it's holding this pivot right here. Notable and important, right? A shares, nothing there. That's the financial CQQQ, right? Holding the 61.8%, notable, right? Here's the Yang. I got out of it yesterday because you can see here, right into the extension channel. Baidu, keep an eye on Baidu. This was sweeping yesterday. It basically nailed the 78.6% fib and it's bouncing. So this could actually be a nice little trade if it sweeps again today. JD, same thing, holding the 50% fib. So we're at levels on a risk reward basis, guys, that you can actually look to nibble. Fuchu bounced off the 61.8% fib. Bobalicious, no man, that's not what you want to go after. All right, here's Fang, as you can see, holding the extension. It broke it, now reclaimed it, notable, right? Here's the growth value. It's sitting at the support. So let's see if growth bounces. Here's growth value against small caps. QQQ sideways consolidation, trying to hold this extension. QQQ against the IWM curling beautifully. Looks like one of those little lovely cup and handles. Whoop, right? Beautiful rounding bottom. That's bullish for the Qs. Dow against the Qs. This is really interesting, guys. This is why I wanted to show this to you. Okay. The Dow is actually holding up against the Qs. So does that mean like the transports and stuff? I don't know. Something to think about. SPY, sideways consolidation here for months going on. We're at the mid, notable, right? But if you look if you go back in time, right? This was basically the dot-com bubble busting. So we don't want this to, we want this to break down. Don't want it to break up, right? So that's notable. Qs against the XLY, right? So the Q, this is consumer discretionary. Look at where we're going to. We're at the top end here. Notable, that would mean like Amazon and Tesla were rallying if this starts to come back down. Keep an eye on that. Qs against XRT, trying to break out against retail. We had a crazy day yesterday on the retail side, right? Weakening, selling, rotation out. Let's see if it pops the top. If not, this is up under the range, and then you would start to see the retail start to go bid and the Q stay stable and XRT rallies. Here's the QQQ against the XLE. It's trying to break out as well. So all of these basically are telling me tailwinds for a breakout on the Qs are potentially here. If not, then we will be getting a pullback in the market. Qs against materials. It's in its, as you can see, triangle, right? It wasn't able to break out. So that's a little bit of a headwind right now for the Qs. Just a couple more. Qs against the XLK. Look at this. It's weakening against the XLK. I think it's fascinating. Anyways, my time is up. Welcome once again to those of you joining us for the first time. And those of you joining us through our live YouTube stream. I hope you enjoyed. This is what we do every morning. We market here at Spartan Trading. Are you ready, sir?
Just need about a minute here, Beth.
Okie dokie. And here's the Qs in and of itself. So this is that, what you would call it, the Merck dude, right? He shouted out a sell signal on the Qs, right? This was the 9-week, and here's the sell signal. I don't know. Just saying, I don't know. As you can see, when he shouted it out last time, we're just saying. And this was a buy, and this was a buy signal. So I know everybody got excited about it because it was on Kramer, right? Commodities, what's going on here? Gold's up a little bit, right? Oil's up a little bit, right? Across the board, sloppy choppy. And lumber continues to weaken. Nothing here really, for all intents and purposes. All right, let's do cryptos because we've got the time. Hi. Ethereum. Okay, so what's going on here? This is the weekly. So the question is going to be is we've got a double top here. We talked about that on Monday. So now the question is, does this hold? This pivot down here, last week's low. If not, basically double top, double bottom, and we consolidate, which would not be a bad thing, to be honest with you. All right, Bitcoin, Ethereum, I told you I was a little bit concerned about this because Bitcoin actually was starting to gain. That's negative for the cryptos as a whole. And that should make sense to you. Why? Okay. Bitcoin in and of itself actually is looking a little bit better than Ethereum, which is really quite interesting. And that's because Bitcoin's gaining against Ethereum, so it would look better, right, technically. XRP right into this now, extension. All right, we'll see what happens here. Let's see what's going to do. I don't know. How much is going to come back? Right? So, if you micromanage this, God bless. That's all I have to say. Here's Bitcoin against XRP. Right? It's gaining. Here's the quadruple whatever bottom. Starting to rally now. So we'll see how that plays out. Doji, double top. Everything had a double top, guys. on Monday. Well, it actually happened over the weekend, but you can see that. I still think we go higher with the cryptos, but you know, it's not for the faint of heart. All right, let's do our Moderna Novavax. Look at this, double bottom, triple bottom. It's bouncing. It was a fantastic trade for us, as you can see. Now, obviously, you would be out of it. And now let's see what happens here. This is telling me that Moderna has potential to continue to push, right? So this comes down only when Moderna sells off, right? And it goes up when Moderna rallies. So let's see if we can start reclaiming some of these pivots. Pretty cool, right? So you see the volume bar here, and you can see this is green now. So you want to see more. This is a weekly chart. Wednesday got plenty of time with that, right? And let's take a look at Moderna against the NTX, okay? Since this is something that we're actively trading, right? As you can see here, Moderna held where it needed to hold and is starting to rally against. But this is almost like a neutral type. This is a monthly. Let's go to the weekly. So it's a little, it's obviously clear to hear what's going on. So you can see that Moderna is starting to outperform the NTX as well.
All right, Beth, I'm ready to come on.
Okie dokie, guys, have fun.
Ready, guys? Let me just pop up the screen share here. There we go. All righty, let's take a look at what we got going on today. So a couple different things. If you guys are new to chat, Discord link is emailed to you, so make sure to check on that in your emails, as well as look at the junk mail. If you don't see it, it will most likely be in there. When you guys do come into chat, it is going to look like this. All righty. So first area to go to the disclaimer section, then go to the new to chat information section and click on, or just read from top to bottom. It should help you. We'll go through that stuff at the end as well. Pre-market tickers will watch a couple of different things that we're looking at today, guys. Tesla, REGN, mRNA, low, ALC, VRPX. Tesla gapping up in sympathy with the market and a continuation from last day's move. REGN, Regeneron says its antibody drug shipment rose 9-fold last week versus a month earlier. Stocks gapping up on that. mRNA, Azure announced that they are expanding their ongoing business relationship with life sciences company Moderna. Stocks gapping up on that. Low. Earnings beat EPS and revs. Year-over-year growth 1%. 2022 guidance was raised. ALC earnings beat EPS and revs. Year-over-year growth 73.8%. Growth 2021 guidance raised as well. And VRPX gapping up in regards to continuation from last day's move. Let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint intraday. So first two that we're looking at today, Tesla and REGN. So first two guys, Tesla, REGN. Let's take a look at what Tesla's doing on the daily here. Should be back into the 50 MA, if not back above it. Yep, so 50 MA, we're right at it right now. Let's see where that pivot is. It should be right on it, I think. Yep, perfect. Awesome, so this works nicely. Let's change it exactly to it, 671.88. All right, so 671.88 on Tesla pivot to the upside today, guys. This level's reclaimed. We're towards 680.06 to 691.96 on the upside. Unable to hold, look for a pullback to 667.26 to 658.43 on the downside. Going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side of Tesla, looking for a grind higher back above that 50 MA. So basically the pivot needs to hold for continuation to the upside, and that's what I'll be looking for today. Hold that level, grind higher. Excuse me. All right, let's take a look at the next one, REGN here. Gapping up all-time highs, I believe. Let's go back and just take a look. Oh, not quite. 661.70, so right below it. But pretty darn close. All right, let's take a look at this thing intraday and I'll mark those levels. So 666.50 guys pivot to the upside today. Levels able to hold 72.33 to 681.74 will be tested. Unable to hold 657.95 to 650.60 will be tested on the downside. Overall on this REGN going to be leading on the bullish side today. Looking for a continuation push into the all-time highs, and then we'll see if we can break through them and get a further push on the upside here. I'm thinking we should. But yeah, we'll see what happens. So that's Tesla. That is REGN, guys. Let's take a screenshot of these two things. And then let's take a look at the next. That's Tesla. That's REGN. Let's take a look at mRNA and low. So we take a look at the mRNA daily. What do we see? Obviously, bounces being occurring, a little bit of a flag break in the short term to the upside. EMA support reclaimed in the short term as well. Let's take a look at the intraday levels that I've labeled already. This is 413. All righty, 403.08 pivot to the upside today. Levels able to hold. We got room towards that 413. 67 level, the 434.05, unable to hold 389.39 to the 372.37 level will be tested on the downside. Overall on mRNA, going to be leaning on the bullish side today, looking for a continuation push higher. So that is mRNA. Let's take a look at low. Stop pushing back up, basically push back up, filling that gap from yesterday, which was that sell-off into earnings. Low 190.08 pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold. We got room towards 193.01 to 196.38 on the upside. Unable to hold. We look for a pullback towards 186.96 to 184.30 on the downside. Overall and low, going to be leaning bullish, looking for a continuation push higher. Think we can grind up, towards the upside. It's been beaten down. It's got plenty of room off the recent range lows that it sold off into. And I'll be looking for continuation because of that. So basically, I want to see a hold the pivot and grind higher. That's mRNA. That is low. Let's take a look at the next two. ALC, VRPX. Get rid of that 73. Let's do some fibs on this thing here. Okay, so 79, 70. Let's take a look. $75, okay. All right, so ALC pivot to the upside 79.05. Levels able to hold 80.90 to 81.88, 81.82, sorry. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback into this name, into the 77.56 to 76.53 on the downside. Overall on ALC, going to be leaning on the bullish side today, looking for a continuation push higher. So looking for a grind to the upside today. Looks good. All right, let's take a look at VRPX. As we all know, the one that ran yesterday. Let's do this. Okay, that lines up perfectly then. So do some intraday fibs. Okay. Mark that last day. That's fine. All right, VRPX guys, let's take a look. So pivot to the upside today, going to be this 32.92 level. It's obviously flagging the pre-market. This level is able to hold. To get rid of where it's 39 to 45.96. Unable to hold. We look for a pullback towards 24.72 to 16.67 on the downside there. I want to see if I can get borrows on this. I'm assuming they're all gone already, but it's a little bit later. Oh no. Let's see. 10,000 available. They're extremely expensive. 25,000 available. Okay. So they definitely have borrows available. I just want to see if they're usually gone right in the morning, then more squeeze potential. But 32.92 pivot, this level is able to hold. To get rid of where it's 39.04 to 45.96, unable to hold 24.72, 16.67 on the downside, and then obviously lower end levels if that level does break. Going to be leaning bullish out the gate, looking for a pop. I do think we'll see some topping kick in, pull probably a little bit of a pullback. We'll see how much fall through this thing gets today, but I would be leaning more on the bearish side after the morning's action. It is a huge move overnight. We'll see how sustainable it is. Obviously, I wouldn't short it unless it starts to roll over, EMAs break, trend breaks, etc. Otherwise, just scalp it long. In my opinion, that's probably the best way to go about it. So that's ALC, that's VRPX. Let's take a look at the SPY and the FANG. Come on, can you load here? All right, so market, let's take a look. I'm going to flip over this the daily chart just because it's faster. To rip through. All right, so what happened with the SPY yesterday? Pulled into EMA support, held it. Uptrend held on the daily as well. Let's see where we got room to today. Oops. So I'm thinking today will be more of an inside day on the SPY, which, you know, you still have quite a bit of range from last day, but I'm thinking more of an inside day. 443.74. Typically, that's what happens when you get a EMA support break, reclaim, and then it does trade inside the next day, kind of consolidates. But anyways, 443.74 pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold. We got room towards 44.70. If that level breaks, we can see the 445.28 level on the upside. Unable to hold 442.81, 442.08 will be tested on the downside breaks. 441 overall on SPY, going to be leaning on the bullish consolidative side today, looking for a grind higher into the top end of the range. We'll see if it's able to hold. If not, obviously come back down, retest the support. There's no confirmation yet of that support reclaiming. This today will be that confirmation. So we'll see what happens. That's the SPY. Let's take a look at Apple. Apple obviously held up quite well yesterday. Pivot is 150.04. That level is able to hold to get rid of where it's 151.10 to 151.89. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback into the 149.05 to 148.07 on the downside. Overall on Apple, leaning bullish, neutral, looking for a continuation push higher today. Want to see a hold of the pivot, push back towards the all-time highs. Again, it's been doing a great job of holding up, so I'm still going to be leaning bullish on it until it actually breaks the uptrend or upside consolidation. Bullish consolidation. All right, let's take a look at Amazon. So Amazon had its failure yesterday to reclaim EMA support, which was, in my opinion, a big deal because it would have given us a confirmation on a reversal in the short term. So that pivot to the upside today, guys, is going to be the 32.57 level. If this level is unable to hold, we have room for continuation lower into that last day low area. Let's just label that level 3208. Not last day's low, below that. 3208 is able to hold, like I said, 32.89 on the upside. And overall on Amazon, going to be leaning bearish neutral unless that pivot's reclaimed out the gate. Pivot reclaimed out the gate, we can bounce, but going to be leaning bearish neutral based off of the chart, looking for a grind lower. With the recent range lows, potentially through them. Let's take a look at Netflix. Netflix bullish consolidative on the daily. It's a good looking chart. 518.40 pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold. We got room for continuation higher towards 581. 521.87. That level breaks. 526.80 will be tested. Unable to hold, look for a pullback towards 515.55. And if that level breaks, 411.51 on the downside. Overall on Netflix, leaning bullish, looking for a continuation push higher today. So I want to see hold the pivot, grind higher. That's Netflix. Let's take a look at Facebook. Oof, misprint candle. Hate that. Can I get in closer? That's as good as it's going to get. It sucks. All right. 358.09 pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold through towards 360.29 to 362.45. Unable to hold, we look for continuation lower to 355 range support. And then into that 350.51, basically, which is where the 50 MA is. Going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side for now, looking for a hold of the pivot and the range and a push back to the upside. But of course, if that pivot doesn't hold, then that changes pretty quickly. So we'll have to keep an eye on that, but it's done a pretty good job of holding up recently, and I think it can continue to hold up if that range holds, aka the pivot. That's Facebook. Let's take a look at Google. So Google pivot to the upside today. For some reason, that's not labeled, but okay. It's going to be this 27.39 area. Still bullish consolidation on the daily. That level is able to hold to get room back towards the high 27.62 area. Our previous range high, I should say. That level is unable to hold 27.1308 on the downside will be tested. Overall on Google, leaning bullish, looking for a continuation push to the upside today. So I want to see a hold of that pivot and a continuation grind higher. So that is Google. All righty. Let's take a look at the VIX, the IWM, and the Qs. VIX pivot to the upside today. Let's see. Well, I guess I'll make it the still, we'll call it the 50 EMA. Well, not call it, but it will be the 50 EMA area. 1754 level holds 1857, 1984. Unable to hold 1664, 1553. Not leaning any direction on the VIX, but it is notable the 50 EMA is holding on the daily. That level is able to continue to hold, we should see continuation higher. Of course, right? So keep an eye on that. I use the VIX for direction on the SPY and the Qs. Let's take a look at QQQ. So did a decent job of holding this recent range on the daily to the upside. 265.53. Pivot to the upside today. This level is able to hold. We have room back towards 266.57, which will be right near where the EMA support reclaim is on the daily, then 67.47. Unable to hold, 363.99 to 362.78 will be tested on the downside. Overall on the QQQs, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today, looking for a continuation push higher. So looking for a reclaim of that short-term pivot and grind to the upside. But of course, if it's unable to do so, Qs will come in and we'll be watching some of the bigger cap tech names coming in as well. And let's take a look last but not least on the IWM, which is certainly extended to the downside on the daily into range support. Pivot is that 217.45 level. Level's able to hold. 219.33 will be tested. Unable to hold, we look back for 214.80 to 213.78 on the downside. And if that level breaks, potential to room down towards 211.55. So it could have quite a bit of room lower if it's unable to hold up today. Going to be leaning bullish. It is extended to the downside. Typically does get a pretty violent bounce. So we'll see if it's able to get that today or not. So that's the IWM. So that's a SPY, it's a FANG. Those are the individual names that we're looking at today, guys. I'm going to go ahead, pass it over to South Beach for a little bit as I type up the pre-market action plan, and then we'll do a quick little recap when I come back on. So South Beach, if you're ready, it's all yours.
Good morning, guys. Wednesday, let's see what we're looking at. We got the 10-year up 0.02 today. Interesting. Okay, but it's still in this tight range. Not a whole lot of action in the bond market. I mean, I think the bond market's telling us that going forward, GDP growth is going to be less than people kind of sort of anticipating at the moment, but let's see. 5 years up a little bit, so the curve widens slightly. Not really significant. Let's look overseas. So the 10-year in Britain is down a little bit, 0.56. But if you look at like Germany, which is down again, it had reached like minus 0.1, and now it's right back into the crapper at minus 0.466, near their lows. Okay, so if you're wondering who's buying US bonds, I'd bet dollars to donuts it's the Europeans, because they have negative yields there, right? And you're not going to invest in that. And the dollar against the euro has kind of been pegged between this like 116.9 and 119 for a very long time. So the currency risk at the moment seems minimal. And there's no return in Europe. You know, like the French 10-year is minus 0.13. You get my drift. So if they're wondering who's buying US bonds, and with the Japanese coming out, I would bet it's these guys. That would be my hunch. Let's look at commodities. So oil is up 1%, but the trend has been lower, right? And that's good for equities. And the charts are kind of crappy, right? It broke on the daily, it broke pretty much all the support I see, all the EMA support it had anyway. And it's rolling over on the weekly, so it doesn't look very good. Also pretending, GDP growth moderation. Okay, copper, another one that's kind of sort of predicting the same thing, right? We're in that trading range, but it's definitely at the low end of that range, right at the bottom actually. 415 to 475 is trading at 417, down 4 cents. So another thing, kind of calling the shots. And the lumber, you remember this is the best chart of all, guys. I mean, this thing just took off like a rocket ship, right? Kind of as soon as the pandemic hit, right? It went from like it looks like the low at that time was around 550 and it got up to 1750 and now it's 450. So all these things are kind of sort of pointing at the same direction, in my opinion, which is GDP growth being moderated. And that's what the bonds are telling me. So all these guys come on and talk about inflation. And I say, you know, I don't agree with them. Everything in the market is telling me they're wrong. So I'm sticking to I'm listening to the market, not saying, oh, inflation is low and we're going to come back and inflation's going to come back. You know what? We'll see. But everything that I look at is telling me that that's not the case. All right. Currencies, dollars down against North American currencies, up against the yen, Chinese currency flat. Euro again pinned 117. So very little volatility in a lot of things. Okay, Bitcoin down 1%. Okay, $540, and Ethereum's down 3%. And we did the bonds, and let's look at the foreign markets. Okay, so we have FTSE down 0.3%. DAX is completely unchanged to the penny. Okay, so that's that. Nikkei is up 0.5%. China's up 1%. Hong Kong's up 0.5%. So those are the indexes that we know. Okay, so banks Fed, right? We have an August 26th to 28th meeting. We have Fed Governor Kashkari came out today and he said he thinks these high inflation readings are transitory. Based on what I'm seeing on my indicators, I agree with that. And you have that Jackson Hole meeting on August 28th, 6th to 28th. And I think a lot of people are expecting some talk on tapering and kind of telling us what's going to be. I think that's what's going on there. I would be surprised if he didn't say anything. So that's what we have in store for that. China, no real change there. The rhetoric continues. The stocks are unownable, in my opinion. And, you know, you have analysts basically reiterating buys and lowering targets. That's what's going on. I mean, I think I've told you guys a million times, I think government rules the roost and what they say goes, especially in China. So, like I say, I don't think these things are ownable. Tradable, yes. Ownable, no. Crypto, what's to say? It acts well. Okay, if you keep flooding the world with dollars, crypto will be probably a good place to be, right? Oil, we discussed. The virus, Israel came out with some news. It's in the Discord about the third dose. And I'm starting to see, older people getting the third dose and compromised people. So I think that's going to be, I think eventually, guys, that we're going to get a flu shot and a COVID shot mixed in one thing, made by one of these mRNA companies. And that's going to be our life going forward. We'll see. Maybe I'm wrong, but that's how I kind of think it's going to play out. The dollar we discussed, Mr. Market. So yesterday the market was pretty sloppy, and it's been pretty sloppy this week actually. So on the plus side, we had pharma and biotech, the vaccine stocks, consumer non-durable, entertainment, and HMOs. Okay, similar to the day before. And on the short side, you had materials, banks, airlines, restaurants, retail, casino, solar, Bitcoin, home builders, machinery, semis, hotels, cruise lines, airlines, and cyclical. So a whole lot of names on the short side. And you guys remember Spartan and I were talking around 2 o'clock, I think it was, and I said to him, the market averages are getting hit too early. And he said, yeah, they'll probably bounce into the close, which is exactly what happened. You know, they don't, to get a really powerful move, guys, they need to come at the end of the day. this middle of the day stuff, they have unless there's some piece of news out that's really, you know, stunning that people are focused on. And maybe it'll last all day, but on a normal day where there's not too much bad news out and they crush them, and at 2 o'clock they're down a lot, chances are really slim that they're going to take another leg down. So that's what happened yesterday. Looking at the market today, I look at these averages and I think the SPYs and the Qs act, the charts are pretty powerful and they act fine. The transports chart is a lot better than it was a week ago. It looks like you can make the argument that it's trying to make a cup and handle. But this IWM chart, I think, is terrible. It looks almost broken. It lost EMA support for what I look at on the daily completely. And on the weekly, it looks like the 10 and 17 are very close to crossing. I'm looking at the numbers now. It's hard to see. Let me see if I can get this up here. Hold on. No, they haven't crossed yet, but they're close. Okay. So looking at group rotation, I think the material stocks are going to be soft again today. The FCXs of the world. If I was looking for strength, I would probably gravitate towards, I don't know, maybe oil and gas, since crude is up 75 cents. Maybe you'll get something out of it looks like these EV names are a little higher this morning. FSR is my favorite. If they're going to go for high beta, they're going to take high PE tech, solar, EV, and stuff like that. So we'll see. I wouldn't be surprised if that's the way the day pans out. You have NVIDIA coming tonight. So people are going to be kind of, I don't know. I don't think they're going to want to take a lot of positions in the semiconductors because that is the big dog. So we'll see about that. But the material stocks, that resonates with me on the short side. And that's about it. Position wise, I'm still short this open, which I told you guys I was going to play on that huge convert. There was like 30 million shares for short that needed to be shorted. So that worked out pretty well. I bought that Viacom late in the day. It got a push this morning from Wells Fargo, I think it was, and some news. And I'll talk about the other positions later, I guess. So that's that. So numbers wise, you had positive numbers out of Lowe's, WB, Krispy Kreme, TJ Maxx, Agilent Light, ALC was very good. This INST, this is the second coming for this stock. They took it private and they went public again. These guys are pretty smart dudes. And DQ. You had Tilray. They announced a 21%. They bought a bunch of converts from Mad Men. It would convert into 21% of the stock, but I don't think they're allowed to own it yet for some legal reasons. Look, I hate Tilray for a multitude of reasons, but now that this guy Irwin Simon is CEO, I hate it even more because remember he was the guy who ran Hain Celestial and they had accounting irregularities, and that is the kiss of death, guys. So I don't trust this guy. I don't like the stock, and I wouldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole, but I would trade it. Okay. JKS had news, positive. They got a long-term contract. AB got accelerated approval. FUV had some positive news, higher vehicle production. GRVI completed an acquisition. The Viacom is doing a joint venture with Comcast for a new streaming service for Europe. And on the short side, you had PLCE, CRE, ADI, which was pushed yesterday prior to earnings by some analyst. I can tell you who if you want. He said buy it in front of numbers. Wrong. Nobody knows these days. I think it was Oppenheimer. And Target was, they looked good on the face, but they don't like the numbers. So they're taking that one down. And that's that. Tonight we have NVIDIA, that's the big dog, right? We have Cisco, everybody loves that one. Red Robin Gourmet, SNPS. This Bed Bath & Beyond, I'm sorry, BBWI. What are they? Bed Bath and Body Works. Hood is tonight and VSCO is tonight. Tomorrow, prior to the opening, we have a bunch of retailers: Macy's, Kohl's, BJ, Tapestry, EL, and then we have PFGC and Wolf. Okay, so a fair amount of earnings, mostly retail driven. Research. What do we have there? Let's look at the short side first. CSID was downgraded from a buy to a sell from this guy, Gordon Johnson, who really hit the long ball a few years back. He was like the first guy to, get into these names, and he's been fumbling since. He's got an $18 target, stock's 34. He thinks there's a demand hit on solar panels, so he didn't like this one. Coin. Mizuho came out neutral, but the verbiage was a lot less than neutral. They raised the target from 210 to 220, stocks 250, but they're basically saying all the things you feared about Coin from the get-go. They lost market share, retail's trading less, and crypto fee commissions are down because because of competition and narrowing spreads. So they put they didn't like this one. Cantor doesn't like MedMen, and then the one that Tilray bought. They raised the target, but they still have a sell on it. Citibank does not like this letter W. They lowered numbers from target from 250 to 2.25. They call it a pandemic kind of name. And now with their competition opening up, their margins are going to come under pressure, which makes sense. And they don't like this name. Store was downgraded by Raymond James due to lower growth. And that's it on the short side. VRM downgraded. Stock's been a pig. The three stocks that Legg Mason recommended when he was on TV, like a few months back, have all been crappy. Tever, DM, and VRM. All three got smoked. So he hit the trifecta. On the long side, everybody's raising numbers in Walmart. The high on the street, I think, is UBS with the 180 target. Most of the guys are living at the 175 area. A bunch of guys visited. BMO had 170. It's just a whole bunch. Let me see if I can. There must be 6 or 7 guys who talked about it. DA Davidson, MKM Partners, Credit Suisse is 166, et cetera, et cetera. You get the drift. Raymond James 170, Deutsche Bank 185, so on and so forth. Wendy's OpCo raises it to outperform target 29. Clear tools to unlock unit growth, they're saying. The Viacom was equal to outperform. Target goes from 45 to 60. Streaming efforts are bearing fruit. They go from a historical bear to a constructive bull. That's interesting, right? And if, listen, there's a lack of companies that have content that could be bought. So that's why I kind of like it. And then Viacom and Lionsgate come to the top of my mind. But with Viacom, you got real heft. I mean, Lionsgate's, a toddler compared to Viacom. Home Depot, reiterate the buy. It's credit Citibank, target 375. See if there's anything here I liked. A BBWI, which reports, reiterate the buy at UBS. Target goes from 111 to 90, but the stock's only 59. I do not play earnings. Foot Locker, I think they report on Friday, if I'm not mistaken. Reiterate the buy, target 82 to 85. What was that? Pivotal Research. So the stock's only, what, $54 or so? Stock looked terrible yesterday. I was short it all day. GXO initiated buy, target 90. I am not in that at the moment. Target stock $74. That VSCO and Hood, they report tonight. I think I previously said that. Morgan Stanley likes this Roblox. Target goes from 87 to 88. They reported yesterday. Stock 78. I think that's pretty much it on the research. Citi likes Carvana. JMP Securities like CRM in front of earnings. They raised the target from 280 to 320. Stock's 246. And so that's it. Would I play any of these names? I like the Wendy's because I've tried shorting and it doesn't go down. I think the DraftKings call, which I might not have mentioned, at a Susquehanna is interesting. They like this name a lot. Target 75. New platform that they really like. Position for high growth, sports betting, sports coming back strong, et cetera, et cetera. So that's it. So the ones I like, kind of like Wendy's, Foot Locker, and the other one, you got earnings coming, so I'm going to avoid that. The Viacom I'm already in. So I don't know. This stuff is not that interesting on the research front this morning. Kathy bought Palantir again, another 500,000 shares. QSI, she continues to buy. She bought some MKFG. She bought 700,000 shares. I think it only traded like 1 million too. So basically she bought every share, which is a little weird. Roblox, SGFY. That's that. And on the sell side, she sold this Ping. I think this is a Chinese stock. Not positive. Baidu, she sold some of that. And nothing else significant. Okay, so that's that. Syndicate-wise today, we had a couple of secondaries by like Roth and Riley. Don't get involved in that crap. There's one IPO for the rest of the week, and there's what? 3 secondaries coming. Okay, I'm only playing them when they converts on the short side. That's it for me, guys. Futures are heavy, but not terrible. And let's see what happens. Okay, so let's make some money today, and Spartan, it's all yours.
All righty. Thank you, South Beach, guys. Let's go through this stuff that we went through this morning. Pre-market tickers on watch. A couple of different things that we're looking at today. All the action plans are posted. You can pause this and take a look if you want. There you go. All right, pre-market tickers on watch, guys. A couple different things that we're looking at today, guys. Tesla, REGN, mRNA, low ALC, VRPX. Tesla gapping up and sipping through the market and in continuation from last day's bounce. REGN, Regeneron, says its antibody drug shipment rose 9-fold last week versus a month earlier. Stocks gapping up on that. mRNA, Azure announced that they are expanding their ongoing business relationship with life science company Moderna in Texas. Stocks gapping up. Low. Earnings beat EPS and revs, year-over-year growth 1%, 2022, guidance raised. ALC earnings beat EPS and revs, year-over-year growth 73.8%, 2021, guidance raised. And VRPX gapping up in continuation from last day's move. Let's take a look at these names from a technical standpoint intraday. First two, Tesla and REGN. All right, guys, Tesla, REGN, let's take a look. Tesla 671.88, pivot to the upside today. Levels able to hold 680.06 to 691.86 will be tested. Unable to hold 667.26 to 658.43 will be tested on the downside. Overall on Tesla, going to be leaning on the bullish neutral side today. Looking for a continuation push higher if that pivot point can be reclaimed. REGN 66.50 pivot, level hold 672.33 will be tested to 681.74. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback towards that 657.95 to 650.60 on the downside. Going to be leaning bullish. Want to see a reclaim of that pivot, push to all-time highs and through them on the daily chart. Let's take a look at mRNA. Let's take a look at low. mRNA, a little bit of a bounce from last day, back above EMA support in the short term. Pivot to the upside today, 403.08. This level is able to hold. We're in towards 413.67 to the 434 level. Unable to hold, look for a pullback 389.39 to 372.37 on the downside. What we want to see is a reclaim of that pivot range for continuation higher today. That's mRNA. Let's take a look at low. 190.08 pivot, levels able to hold. We got room towards 193.01 to 196.38. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback to 186.96 to 184.30 on the downside. Overall on low, leaning bullish, looking for a continuation push to the upside today. So looking for a continuation push higher. It did pull back before earnings. I want to see it fill that gap and then continue to push to the upside. Let's take a look at ALC. Let's take a look at VRPX. And I love the strength on ALC today. Beautiful. ALC guys, pivot to the upside today. 79.05 level holds. 80.90 to 81.82 will be tested. Unable to hold 77.56 to 76.53 on the downside. Overall on ALC, going to be leaning bullish, looking for a continuation push higher. VRPX 32.92 pivot. Levels able to hold 39.04 to 45.96 will be tested. Unable to hold 24.72 to 16.67 on the downside. Overall on VRPX, going to be leaning on the bullish side today, looking for a continuation push higher. All right, let's take a look at the SPY and the FANG, guys. Sorry, VRPX leaning bearish, looking for a push out the gate this morning, and then topping to kick in the afternoon and come in. We'll see if that happens. It's obviously, huge move, quite extended to the upside, but of course, don't want to take it short unless it gives you a reason to. SPY, until then, to trade it long. 443.74 pivot, levels able to hold. They got room towards 444.70 to 445.28. Unable to hold, look for a pullback to 442.81 to 442.08 on the downside. I should be typing this out. And I do think the SPY will stay inside today, but SPY 443.74. Pivot on the upside today. This level holds. Room higher into the 444.70 resistance. Breaks, we see the 445.28 level tested. Pivot unable to hold. Room lower into the 442.81 support. Breaks, we see the 442.08 to 441 tested. Looking bullish neutral, looking for basing. I think it's going to be inside day, looking for probably like a little bit of a pullback on the open basing, and then we'll be watching for a curl back to the upside. We're into the EMA support on the daily right now, so we'll see what happens there. Holds up, and if it does, we can get a little bit of a bounce on that. Let's take a look at Apple. Apple pivot to the upside today, guys, is going to be the 150.04 level holds 151.10 to 151.89. Unable to hold 149.05 to 148.07 will be tested on the downside. Overall on Apple, leaning bullish, looking for a continuation push back towards the all-time highs today. We'll see if that's able to occur. Let's take a look at Amazon here. Amazon pivot is going to be the 32.57 level. Unable to hold. We got room back towards that 32.08. Able to hold 32.89 can be tested on the upside. Going to be leaning more on the bearish side today. Did get rejected at the support reclaim yesterday, which obviously is a little bit more on the bearish side. So we'll see if it's able to reclaim the pivot. If it is, we can get a bounce. If not, well, continuation lower. Netflix pivot, guys, is going to be the 518.40 level. Level holds 521.87 to 526.80. Unable to hold 515.55, 511.51. Going to be leaning bullish. A little bit of a bullish consolidation move on Netflix reclaiming short-term EMA support. I think it looks good for a continuation push to the upside. Facebook, so a little bit of a misprint candle here, so we'll have to zoom in. It's kind of hard to see this stuff, guys. Let's see if we can get it. It's like pretty finicky. Right here, 55 through 50.51. Leaning bullish. If that neutral, leaning bullish neutral, if that pivot can hold, I'll be looking for a grind back to the upside. Last but not least, on the FANG, Google pivot to the upside today, guys, is going to be 27.38 level holds. 27.62 will be tested. Unable to hold 27.13 on the downside, and going to be leaning bullish neutral on that. Let's take a look at the the VIX. VIX pivot 17.54, able to hold 18.57, 19.84. Unable to hold, we look for a pullback into the 16.84 on the downside. Overall on the VIX, going to be leaning no direction, but watching that pivot, which is the 17.54 AK, the 50 EMA on the daily. So big level to be paying attention to. Let's take a look at the Qs. 365.53. Level holds 366.57 to 367.47 will be tested. Unable to hold 364 to 362.78 on the downside. And overall on the Qs and leaning bullish if that pivot can hold. So that's what I'll be watching for there. So that's a SPY, that's a FANG. Those are the individual names that we are looking at today, guys. We'll see what happens. Should be an interesting day. And yeah. Thanks for joining us this morning on the YouTube stream, guys. We do this every single Wednesday. If you have any questions, you go to spartantrading.com. Otherwise, yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Thanks.